Possession crucial from this. How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over. It's over.
Well, hello there and welcome back to the RTÉ GAA Podcast. We're back to preview the weekend's hurling action in the Allianz Hurling League. We're in great form as well because the weather's better, the pitches are better, and it's only hurling this weekend, Marty, as well. So,
excuse me,
we're
what do you mean it's only hurling? Hold on now.
Focus on the small
ball. A fella from Sligo saying it's only hurling. Excuse me. And you have two Clare lads on your programme today, Cathal, so you want to cop on there now.
Yeah, we've got Marty in studio and Anthony Daly with us as well. Anthony, how are you?
Good, Cathal. How are you?
All well, all well. Good to have you along, lads. So, Marty, just to read out the fixtures this weekend. Division 1A, Limerick, Cork, Galway, Kilkenny and Waterford, Tipp. A lot riding on each and every one of them.
There's quite a lot, and I suppose the most attractive has to be Cork-Limerick. And if you were a betting man, you know, this could end up being the All-Ireland hurling final in July. You just don't know. But I mean, they'll be the two of the better teams that I've seen. And in terms of form, they are the form teams. Like Limerick were just lethal against Tipperary. I know they had a bumpy road in the opening. It was their opening game against Waterford, but that's phenomenal. Galway, I don't know what Anthony thinks. I've been impressed with Galway. I think Michael Donoghue is doing a good job. I know what he's trying to do, and you can see it. And they're bringing in physicality, and Joe Rabbitt's son is doing very well, and a couple of the young fellas coming in are going well, and Kilkenny, hello, Kilkenny. And the last one there, and I know we're going to do each one, but I've the first two assignments that I had were Waterford games, and they were very good against Limerick. Now, they were only okay against Offaly, but that having been said, and I suppose being a Clareman, I'm particularly interested in Waterford form because there's a game coming down for our county in whenever it is in Ennis, and to me that's for Clare and Waterford, that is an absolute must-win for both counties.
Yeah,
just have to.
And in terms of must-win, Anthony, this weekend, Waterford have to win. It's their last game in the group, so they need the 2 points to retain their status here.
I would say so, Cathal, because their score difference is slightly worse than anybody else's. So it's even a draw, they'd be very much looking over their shoulders the following weekend at other results. And a draw with Tipp would bring it to score difference, and Tipp are maybe 10 points ahead of them, I think. So, yeah, it's massive for them. Like Marty now, I've been covering a couple of their games. I was in Cork for the first round. They were abysmal. Watched them then against Limerick. They were excellent. Got the job done against Offaly, as Marty alluded to. Thought they were excellent in Nolan Park and really deserved to come away with something, but didn't. And they were abysmal again on Sunday. I was in Salthill, and it was nearly as bad as the Cork game. So Peter Queally will be hoping they have to get the same bounce that they got after Cork at home to Tipp, who were big rivals from Munster, obviously, that they might get the job done. But we'll just need to see the improvement. They look tired. They look leggy. Galway looked to have so much more about them. The only thing with Galway was they're probably not as advanced as Cork, and they didn't score as much. They missed the penalty, and they had a lot of wides. There was a crosswind in Salthill. Yourself there can be tricky. They left definitely 1, 5 or 6 after them. Or I'd say I don't think Waterford left hardly anything after them. So yeah, they'll just need to get back to the Limerick Kilkenny type performance. We don't know much about Tipp for the time being because they beat Galway in the first match. Good game. Galway really put it up to them. Crucial goal, I suppose, decided it. They hammered Offaly, and then they were just abysmal. Would be the worst way of putting it. I think they were the worst abysmal I've seen in Tipp in a couple of years against Limerick. So yeah, it's a big one for Liam. I did the weekend off. I'm sure there was a nice bit of hard training the week after the Limerick game. And they'll want to win this now. They'll want to get the threat of relegation out of their system before the last game against Kilkenny. So I think it's a very, very interesting game.
Yeah, they're reaching a point where we kind of forget sometimes. Championship in the past didn't start until May or June, but it's not that far away.
No,
and ultimately the championship is the barometer. It is the ultimate, is the pinnacle for all of us. So. This is Waterford's last game in the league before they face Clare. So it's do or die for them, and what a challenge. Now, if they can produce that winning performance, like Anthony says, they're just sporadic at the moment. You don't know which Waterford is going to turn up.
Yeah.
On their day, they can beat anybody.
Yeah, they can, and they showed that against Limerick, didn't they, down in Walsh Park? Anthony, why is that? Why are Waterford so inconsistent?
Well, I don't know, just you can get flat days in league. You know, it's a tough process, and their weekend off wasn't until the very last weekend next week. So they've been at it flat out. They've picked up a number of injuries. Hugely significant, I felt, was Conor Prunty being out. I think he'll be out for a while. He'll be in a battle to get back for the Clare Championship match. That's forcing them to play Mark Fitzgerald at full back. That's a huge loss to their half-back line.
Yeah.
Daly came off injured at half-time from centre-back. They only brought the 26 players, I think. Desi had picked up an injury in the small cameo role he had against Kilkenny. The Ballygunner lads have they fully settled in yet? You'd say not. Like Patrick Fitzgerald is missing. There's a lot of talent missing. Caleb Lyons back from Australia. We all thought he was flying it, but a couple of ropey performances now. You know, he's taken off in Kilkenny, and when he came on against Galway, he wasn't good either. But that's just the effects of being out of the game for a full year. We know his quality, so I think Peter will be still anxious to get game time into him. Shane Bennett didn't play as well as he did in the previous two games the last day. So they were just very flat in Galway. Kevin Mahoney looked tired, if anything, and that could be an issue with some of the Ballygunner lads. But they, as Marty said, like, they won't be in the league final. This is their last big prep game, really, for Clare. Like, you'll be looking at challenge matches in a couple of those.
Yeah.
That's all you'll have. So, and Clare are going to have the 1B final at the very least. So, I mean, look, I'm sure Brian Lohan was in Salt Hill watching them on Sunday, because Clare played Saturday night, and you know, he won't have been too worried about what he saw, but he'd be realistic to know enough to know what he saw against Limerick and against Kilkenny. That's the real Waterford, and that's the team they'll be hoping will turn up in Walsh Park.
Yeah, and like Tipp could get dragged into it as well. If they lose this weekend, they're going to be right in the mix then as well.
Which is kind of a strange thing.
Yeah.
But I remember Henry Shefflin was on the live game that I was doing, and he did say about Tipperary are in a different place to the other counties because of being All-Ireland champions. And Liam Cahill was right probably to give those players a run. It's very hard because, you know, you think of what do you do with the Ballygunner players? You have to give them a break. They've done so well to win the All-Ireland. And likewise, I think Tipperary wanted to give several of their young players a chance. And young O'Reilly, a cornerback, was magnificent. And he deserved his chance. And he swapped around the goalkeepers. I'm sure it'll be still re-Shelley to be between the posts when the championship comes on. But he wanted to give Barry Hogan a run. So what I'm saying is Tipperary are in a different place to the rest of the counties, I would suggest. Cork, on the other hand, had a point to prove.
The gas thing about this is it's not inconceivable that Tipp and Kilkenny would lose at the weekend. They both play away from home, both sticky matches. That last match could be virtually a relegation playoff, like, you know. So it's going to set it up for some last weekend if those results come off.
Yeah, for
because
sure.
Galway are not out of the equation either. They have two to play, and they're on 4. So if they can win the two of them, they might be in with a shot. I mean, they're themselves in Limerick the last day.
Yeah, 4 teams on 4 points.
And it is difficult, isn't it, Anthony? I mean, you were an intercounty manager. I mean, there's only 6 games before you're into the championship because the championship is so early. So it is difficult to gauge it right, to give players a chance, and yet you want to be starting to settle your team around now, don't you, really?
Yeah, and I suppose the worry from a Clare point of view is we're playing 1B, and you know, we know we get a huge challenge from Wexford on Sunday, and maybe a final then against Wexford again or against Dublin. That's the way it's looking. But are we getting the same tests as the Waterfords and the Limericks who would come up against in the first couple of games? So that's the quandary. A lot of people are saying, Clare, not a word about Clare, they're slipping away nicely. But, you know, that is the thing. Are you really seeing the young guys playing against a very top-class opposition? And that's why Clare are delighted, I suppose, to be up promoted, but that's all for next year. Like for Brian, it's about getting 2 really good games now in prep for Waterford.
Yeah, so that's Waterford Tipp. Why don't we go then to the other 2 teams on 4 points? Galway, Kilkenny, they're live on television on RTÉ this Saturday from Salt Hill. Kilkenny, Anthony, the last day, I think it was just 1-7 from play that they got overall in that match against Cork. Now, in fairness to them, they made a right go of it towards the end. It was tight. But they still lost out.
The one thing, Carl, with them is they'll keep fighting. It's not in their DNA to the down tools, as we've mentioned, with some other counties on off days. They don't really do an off day. They'll do, they keep battling. Now, they were quite lucky not to concede more goals, I would have felt.
Yeah. They
only conceded 12 points. That will tell you as well that how tricky the conditions were down there. I thought it was a great battle, really old style league stuff. And, Cork's record wasn't great in Nolan Park. Obviously, they hadn't won a significant game down there, I think, since 1987. So, Ben O'Connor was putting it up to his lads, and, there was a lot missing from Cork as well. But still, Kilkenny fought. And a couple of times we thought they were gone. We probably thought they were gone when Barry Walsh got taken down for the black card penalty. They missed the penalty. And then when the goal came from Alan Walsh after the catch, we said it's definitely over now. And yet Kilkenny got it back to a goal again.
Yeah.
So they'll fight. They face a team that I'm really enjoying watching. I'm lucky enough to be at a couple of their games, Galway. I really see leadership developing in the team. I really see Micheál putting his stamp on the team this year. I really see the Loughrea lads now starting to be, bedded in. Kieran Hanron, I thought, had a great game, cornerback, and the much talked about Colin Killeen made his debut. The lad who got off with the red card for the All-Ireland final. So, and Tiernan Killeen, his brother, was brilliant against Waterford. They really looked like they were on a mission. Keane Daniels, another guy in midfield that many people wouldn't have heard of. And Marty mentioned the two boys up front, but Colin Mullaney in between them as well, getting his goal. And Cathal Mullaney, although it was a bit ropey from the freeze, was excellent in play. So, yeah, didn't even mention Darren Morrissey, Pádraig Mannion and that, Keenan Fahy. Yeah. They were down Darren Morrissey, Dahi Burke. Will some of those be back? Not Darren Morrissey, but Gavin Lee and Dahi Burke. So, yeah, it's a fascinating game because the Cats are looking over their shoulder, knowing they could have, if they don't get something here, they could have Tipp and having to get a result. So pressure on both management is like, we kind of be praising Galway all along, but if they lose, they're looking over their shoulder, then having to go to Limerick like such. It's fascinating. I think it's the best weekend of fixtures so far in the league, without a doubt.
Yeah. As I said, I've been impressed with Galway. And look, Kilkenny are always Kilkenny, and there's always a sensational player coming along, But you also, I don't think there's a player emerging from the underage ranks. Did you say it could be a superstar?
Yeah.
And TJ Reid is and when we use the word legend, by God above, and he is to still come back, and he will provide the leadership. But all the players that Anthony mentioned there, I think, are coming through for Galway. And there's a steeliness about them, and there's a little bit of self-belief. And the Loughrea players are good. The Killeens are really good. So I think Loughrea will make a major contribution to the Galway team. But there's something, I just sense with the way Micheál Donoghue is putting the team together, they just need one break, one victory, and it could give them the momentum and the self-belief, and they'd say, geez, we can actually do this.
Yeah.
And whether... I'm sure Micheál would want it in the championship rather than the league, but he'll take the league if it is significant, particularly when it is against Kilkenny.
Yeah, just on Kilkenny, Anthony, you mentioned the goal chance that they conceded the last day. Obviously, Hugh Lawler's not part of the setup this year. That long ball in worked to good effect for Cork as well. How did Kilkenny go about addressing that maybe this weekend?
Yeah, if you were to pick a man you were losing at this stage of the year, you probably would say you didn't want it to be Hugh Lawler.
Yeah.
I've heard conflicting reports of whether he'll be home for championship or not, but latest I've heard is he won't be home. If they found somebody, I think Liam Moore, whether they play him at wing forward or full forward, I think he brings a bit of direct running and a threat. He teed up Cody for his goal with a kind of a strong burst through the middle, and he's the one I think has come out of the pack up front. It's at the other end. Is Mikey Carey an out-and-out 3? We know Mikey Carey is an outstanding defender, probably better 5. But when you're left with a gap like Hugh Lawler gone, you're desperately trying to fill it. Dara Corcoran has done decently at 6, I'd say. We saw the last day Paddy Deegan at wing forward, but they were susceptible. Brian Hayes looked a threat all day long in the air. As I said, were they all watching Brian Hayes when Alan Walsh caught the last ball for the goal, and Barry Walsh made 2 or 3 huge catches as well on his debut for Cork. So yeah, it's in defence. Talis made 2 or 3 brilliant saves in the goal. Is he going to be first choice goalie, or is Murph going to be back in? So there's a good few questions for Kilkenny, but if any crowd capable of coming out and answering them, it's Kilkenny. And the one thing I really enjoyed about the last day was the level of fight. The level that the Keane Kinney's, John Donnelly when he came on, Tom Phelan. Now they're 2 guys. that will have a big say to be in the starting 15. I mean, obviously John Donnelly, outstanding. I mean, all-star material the last 2 seasons, but he was injured and carrying a bit of a knock, and he was really effective when he came on against Cork. So yeah, it's going to be a great battle. Galway are going to have to hit the heights they hit again last Sunday, 6 days later. So yeah, it's very hard to call. Kilkenny will come. I've liked Galway, but they're very inexperienced still, a lot of them, and they'll meet now something a bit different. What I liked about Galway was a lot of their younger lads showed leadership qualities, and but Kilkenny ultimately test that for you. So yeah, be dying to tune into that one Saturday evening.
You mentioned goalkeepers, Anthony. Paddy Sullivan did well for Cork, didn't he?
He did, Marty. Maybe he made one mistake. He came back across the goal, but he made 2 or 3 great saves. He did. He was effective all through. I suppose Patrick Collins will still be number 1, but yeah, will there be a bit of not to be jumping ahead in your call now, will there be a bit of shadow boxing in the last match?
Well, that's what I was just going to say, because we were talking about this earlier on in the week, lads, that Limerick and Cork could meet 4 or 5 times between now and the end of the season. It's unbelievable, really, but it's not beyond the realms of possibility.
No, not at all. And there's obviously history between them. The Munster Championship match that Limerick hammered Cork, and then the Munster final when Cork won the extra time or won the match on penalties after extra time. So there could be. You know, I mean, it was funny. I met somebody, a woman from Dublin, and I enjoyed her. She was a bit of a real carriage mad J woman. She says, "Jez, I love Ben O'Connor. He reminds me of what's his name, Roy Keane." And I said, "God, yeah, I never thought of that." And she loved the mention about a fella getting a clip in the back of the head. So what are the helmets there for? I'm paraphrasing now, but I think Ben is bringing a steeliness to Cork. And yes, the team have been playing well, and I agree with Angie. There could be a bit of shadow boxing, but I don't know if it is in Ben O'Connor's DNA to do that.
Well, that can be a dangerous game, can't it? If you start messing around with your team and stuff. What would you do, Anthony, this weekend? Because Cork are more or less there in the league final already.
Yeah, you expect even if they trip up that they'll beat Offaly in the last one. Offaly very little to play for now, which is all about the Leinster Championship now for them. Kylie and Ben O'Connor will find it hard to take a step back. This is their first competitive meeting, really, if you leave out the Munster League. It's not in their DNA to not go at it in a massive crowd, no doubt.
Good news for all of us.
Absolutely.
I can't see it being a shadow boxing, but they will experiment personnel-wise. And that be the difference between if they meet in a league final, or crucially the difference for the Munster Championship game, their round robin. And if they meet after that, obviously it'll be do or die after that. Well, not quite do or die, but a Munster final would be a Munster final if they did to meet. No, that's all speculation. But yeah, you saw the changes Limerick were able to make for the Offaly game, and you were still going wow when you saw the 15 that were named. You know, Keane Lynch back in, Burnsy back in, and that kind of thing. And yet, Shane O'Brien and Cathal O'Neill came up with the 2 goals to give them a bit of comfort. They were probably a bit slack. The huge news emerging out of that is Darragh Donovan has done his AC joint in his shoulder. Now, it depends on the severity of how badly he has done it, but they say it's a minimum of 4 weeks, and if it's a bad one, it could be 8 to 10 weeks. So I thought he was very good against Tipp, kind of covering the half-back line, allowing William O'Donoghue to sit. So will they be, Kyle Hayes played centre-back the last day, will they be forced to go with that? I think he'd prefer Kyle at 7, but he might put him at 6 and now William and Adam English maybe, because Darragh Donovan I thought was really coming back to himself after a couple of injury hit years. And then with Cork, we saw the changes they made right from goalie out, as Marty said, and what a debut for Barry Walsh. Alan Walsh off the bench gets the goal. Hugh O'Connor, I thought, while he didn't score, showed an awful lot in terms of his movement and his pace, and again able to experiment with Darragh Fitz at half forward. Will they do that now against Limerick, or is that giving away something that Limerick would be able to maybe have a look at somebody on him to see are they effective on him? So it's cat and mouse, but they still will go at it, I feel, to try and win. Limerick will know as well if Limerick can win this, they're effectively as good as in the final for a rematch, and they can decide what way they attack that then when it comes.
Anthony and myself did the Limerick Tipperary match for TV, and we were both enthralled and had to step back in admiration for the attitude of Limerick. They set out their stall early, and we knew from the beginning with the team that John Kiley picked, okay, they kind of mean business here. And there was a hunger, there was an appetite. And I'm sorry to hear about Dara Donovan, because I agree with Anthony that Dara's was really showing form. And that AC joint, the problem with that is it can pop out again at another time. So they have to make sure that it's right. So hopefully it'll be a 4-week injury rather than an 8 or 10-week injury.
Yeah, but he doesn't really have the time though to play around, does he? No. To try and rest it up or take care of it.
Then you're losing the prep as well, Carl. You know what I mean? It's one thing getting back fit, but Dara was on a trajectory where he was coming back from a couple of years of injuries and setbacks, and then you lose 4 to 5 weeks of proper training. You know, you probably have to run, but even restricted at that, you certainly won't be able to hurl or do any contact. So I think the big thing, you know, Brian Hayes looks to be gone to another level, lads, physically even again. And, you know, the amount of attention he's attracting. And I mean, will it be Dan Morrissey? Will it be Mike Casey? Will he be started? Might start Declan Dalton and just, you know, they'll feel they will get to the final, I'd say, at this stage. Yeah. So, so many until we see the teams, I suppose, on tomorrow night, I suppose. It still will be a great... I think if you're a Cork player, it's very hard, Carl, to do half-baked with the absolute fan base that's following you around the country. I mean, when you heard after Alan Walsh's goal in Nolan Park, like over 14,600 in Nolan Park, and nearly 2-1 Cork, I believe, and the rebels. Like, I mean, how do you not put in a shift for a group of people that are following you around like that after 2 disappointing All-Ireland defeats? And they're amazing, yeah. And
you know, I mean, I remember long before I got the job here, I was a student in Cork, and you go down to Páirc Uí Chaoimh, or indeed the Mardyke sometimes, and there might be 4,500 people, maybe, you know what I mean, during the league.
Yeah.
But I happened to be on the radio the night Cork beat Limerick when Hoggy got the penalty and scored it down at the Blackrock end. And there was an invasion. And Pat Ryan asked the people of Cork to come out and support Cork that night. And it just seems to have become a craze. It's wonderful. It's great for hurling. It's great for Cork. But now they can't do anything without having a crowd, which is wonderful. But it is phenomenal. I'm sure, Anthony, when you were playing, like the Cork crowds weren't as much or as passionate as what they are now, during the league now.
No, certainly not. No, and they were going through a lean time, really, after we beat them far back as 93, and we beat them for a good few times after that until they beat us the Munster final in 99. But in that team, they garnered great support, and they went on to win, obviously, 04 and 05 as well, back to back, and they haven't won since, which is amazing. And the things like the strikes and all that were divisive enough down there. I remember bringing down a Dublin team to play Cork, and it was nearly a Cork third or fourth team because of the amount of lads not making themselves available. But Ben, Pat did huge work, obviously, Kieran Kingston before him and John Myler, but Pat seemed to have brought this style of play that they loved, and now they're loving the directness with the way Ben talks. They'll know as well that they're not really tested yet. So they'll know that Limerick in themselves is always a test. And as you said, Marty, tonight we did Limerick, it was a wow factor there. And especially from the younger brigade, like that was the thing. They were looking like the leaders, Shane O'Brien, Aidan O'Connor, Kyle O'Neill. I think this I know it's hard to believe he's about 24. This might be his breakout season, but I really think we can expect a massive year from Kyle O'Neill.
Yeah, he was at midfield the last day, wasn't he, against Offaly? Did you hear Alan Connolly's interview on television after the game at the weekend? Just basically Cork want to win everything. That's just their focus now. It's that steely focus on every single match, so they're not playing it down.
And Brian Hayes, I saw Brian Hayes play with the Bars in the Cork Championship and in the Munster Club Championship, and he's a fine footballer. I'm sure John Cleary would love to have him as well. But I agree with Anthony. I think he's playing at a different level now. Whatever his preparation is, he just seems to be physically tall. Well, everybody looks tall in comparison to me anyway, but I mean, he looks particularly tall.
I'll put you in at full back, Marty, and try it.
I wouldn't like to be marking him, even if I was 6'4", 6'5". But he's just playing, and he draws the foul, which is invaluable then as well.
And that they can mix up their game nicely, where you can put long ball in on top of him at the edge of the square. But the running power they have from the middle, like O'Connell the last day, I thought was brilliant. That running power through the middle, and obviously Dara Fitz as well, is just lightning quick, very hard to stop.
The Munster,
and we're only just about seeing Tim O'Mahony back, So and look at the physicality he brought to Nolan Park the last day, just the sheer size of the man. They have that mix now, I think, of the raw pace I mean, we know they're fantastic hurlers, but they can match it up physically as well. Cormac O'Brien's a tough player. You know, Jermellerick came on near the end. He came out with the very last ball when Kilkenny were trying to get an equalising goal. So a lot of options. I still think maybe 3, you know, full back line and just to get it settled.
Darragh O'Leary going to play at 3, is he? Anthony?
Yeah, he done well.
He came off late. He done well enough. He came off there late. I don't know, did he pick up maybe a bit of a strain or something? Very hard to know when you're watching on TV. He has done well. Yeah, he has done well. Is he the answer? I'm not certain. They're obviously still thinking of Owen Downey now as a half-back. So a lot of speculation. Would Robert go back in there? He's played there in the past. Could Kieran Joyce even go back in there? Or are they going to be happy with Darragh O'Leary? So a few little bits to be answered yet, but some amount of options.
Some amount of options.
I think Ben O'Connor is a supporter, if that's the right word. He has a bit of confidence in Darragh O'Leary. Because when I went down to Newtown Shandrum to interview him before the league started, we talked about players. I like Darragh O'Leary, I must say, and I only saw him a couple of years ago and I thought he was excellent. And then he disappeared off the radar and now he's back again. But he probably needs a bit of confidence. But as Angie says, there's probably question marks over 3. And that's a crucial area, particularly when you see what's coming down the track.
Well, I think Limerick got off something like 50 shots, lads, didn't they, against Tipperary in that game, which is a staggering, absolutely, and 36 points, unbelievable.
I thought Limerick were, the night that Dale and myself were in Thurles, oh my God, I thought Limerick were brilliant. Yeah. Absolutely brilliant.
It wasn't a great game to be commentator and co-commentator, no.
No. We got talking about the weather and the economic situation in the middle of the game. No, we didn't.
Well, let's see what happens at the Gaelic
We did mention
grounds.
our old school, though, Flannans. You know, they were beaten in the RTÉ Cup final and then they came back in. I think they won that day, didn't they?
Yeah, they won that day. The semi-finals now are on Saturday, Marty.
Yeah.
Very good.
So
Great
2 big ones,
competition
Nina
as well.
and St. Kieran's and St. Raphael's and Flannans.
Yeah. See, even in the RT podcast, we get in our old school, yeah. Very proud of the RT Cup and Flannans. Anyway, keep going, Carl.
Well, let's talk about Clare. So they have Wexford on Sunday. Clare are already there, Auntie. They're in the final. They're going along nicely, 5 from 5. How do they approach this weekend? Because this is a big match for Wexford in particular.
Yeah, and I guess the most trained set of eyes in Cusack Park, and no doubt he'll be down there watching as well. And Neil O'Callaghan, the Dubs will be praying that Clare kind of really go for it. I just chatting in the bar over the last couple of nights with lads in and out, you know, Fierce J custom here, and this is like, what will Clare do now? Will they kind of take the foot off the gas and play Wexford again in the final? Or, like, I think we've been in 1B. I think we should go all out to win the 2 games, to try and get 2 really good tests before Waterford. So for me, unless Dublin slip up, if Clare can come out and win on Sunday, they'll face Dublin then in the final, who gave them a brilliant match in the first round. Dublin were very unlucky not to come away from Ennis that day with at least a draw. So if I'm Brian Lowe and I'm saying, God, we're after having a couple of games we were expected to win and won them fairly comfortably. Kildare, who are probably the story of the league, they have frightened teams and indeed gave Clare a good scare. Only for Tony Kelly was getting 8 points in play that night, but he had the luxury leaving off Tony now last night against Carlow, and I think he goes strong enough. Yet he'll still probably be looking at. It's great to see Sean Rinn back from a broken hand. He played last night, and Dermot Stretch obviously is one. Shane Meehan is he on his breakout season as well for a guy that's on the panel for a few years, a bit like Colin O'Neill. So yeah, and a couple of lads in the backs, like to see John Keneally again, maybe. Very unfortunate to get injured against Antrim in the middle of the Fitzgibbon as well, and it cost him the rest of the Fitzgibbon. I think you need to look, Jack O'Neill possibly as well, you need to look, but you also need to be putting in a big shift, because Wexford know if they lose it, there's every chance they're going to be in 1B again. Rossi, he was lucky enough getting the first few results.
Yeah.
But, they were good in Croke Park against Dublin. They were decent the last day. And, I think they're on an upward curve, and obviously that coincides with Lee Chin coming back into the team. And I see Jack O'Connor named as the captain for the year, even though he's not ready to play yet with an injury. But yeah, they're on an upward. They came down last year. I was at the game last year. We were on our way down, but we think we were just after beating Limerick, and it was one of the most disappointing displays from the Clare team last year. And then I think that could be in Brian's mind and the players' mind, and they'll want to put that right. And I think Clare will say, look, go all out here, try and get a win. and maybe play a different team in the final. Do you know, that'd be just my way of thinking. That's no disrespect to Wexford. If Wexford come and get the result, we go at it again 2 weeks later in the final. So either way, you're going to have two big battles. But I think two different teams would be more advantageous to Clare. But who knows? Wexford know it's do or die, whereas Clare know they're in the final and know they're up.
That can alter things, can't it? A small bit.
I can, Anthony, spot on. I could totally concur with his thinking, because, you know, we would be worried the fact that we are in Division 1B, that there is a difference in speed in the whole thing, the speed of the Corks, the Limericks, Tipperaries. And we are the only team in Munster is in Division 1B. And we haven't had a mega test, to be honest with you. And then you play at a certain pace. But that having been said, we have a very experienced team. But it is important that the next two games to Clare, I think, give it everything. Whether it is Wexford or Wexford Dublin in the league final. I think it's important. And it's great to give the players a chance. And they have been under the radar, which I think suits Brian Lohan. I was at a fundraiser here in Dublin for the Clare lads, and God, the attitude was so spot on. They're hungry. They want to prove a point. And there's no mention of the last dance or anything like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you just
there is a feel of that, though, isn't there?
It's in here. You say, we got to get one more out of ourselves.
Yeah.
And as a Clare man, obviously, I can feel it, and I hope it happens. But and Sunday, I'm actually going to that match for League Sunday, so I'm looking forward to being at home in Ennis.
Yeah, it's nicely set up for Wexford, though, in many ways too, Anthony. I mean, they scrape through those matches, as you say, at the start, but they'll probably have circled this and say, this is the one where we need to try and peak for.
Yeah, well, though, wouldn't even be talking about it now unless Mark Fanning came up from goal and buried the goal against Antrim, and they're very lucky to get out of jail above in Ballycran as well. So they did ride their luck, but look, they got the points, crucially for Keith at the time. And they're a crowd like Wexford always, they feed off momentum. And no matter how close those calls were, they got the bit of momentum. And then they showed real fight, literally, against the Dubs in Croker. It was hot and heavy. And when they meet in Leinster, that should be a mouth-watering one. There's a healthy rivalry between both counties. But yeah, I think they have that momentum now. They know it's effectively a promotion game. They know if they win, or maybe even a draw, that they're going to be back in 1A, and that's a huge incentive because they are rebuilding, let's face it. A lot of the big guns are, big guns, and I say, Conor McDonald, these fellas have gone. Is Will Rory O'Connor will hardly be back, we're hearing. But Liam Ryan is back, and as I said, Chin is back. So, yeah, I think it's a good one. It should be a fine crowd in Ennis. Even the down home game, Clare had 5,000 people there. There's great support for this team, and they'll come out to support them after being away now for the last couple of games in Carlow and in Newbridge. Yeah, there will be a huge support. I'd say at 1:15, it's a great time for a game as well on Sunday. So I'd say a fierce local support and a fierce drive from the people as well, and feeding down to the field. I think Clare will get the job done.
Okay, let's see how it goes. Dublin played down this weekend as well. The Dubs in third, 2 points behind Wexford. And you've already mentioned them, Anthony. Kildare, one of the stories probably of the hurling season so far, but that's a big one for them this weekend against Carlow. Kildare have 4 points already. Carlow back on 2. So this is a key game for both counties, Carlow in particular.
Yeah, it's massive. Traditionally, Carlow would not have feared Kildare at all and would have seen them as their superior, in hurling terms. But this Kildare, I won't call it a juggernaut yet, but it started with the likes of Nace and Spread, and Brian Dowling's been excellent running the show there, along with winning Leinster Colleges at the same time with St. Kieran's, and there's a real momentum with them now. And to go up into Ballycran and to play with 14 men now, having seen back the video of what Jack Sheridan was sent off for, I think there's a strong chance Jack might be available for the weekend, because, his own player kind of pushed the down player into him, and I thought this was very harsh. Didn't see only when I saw it back. So, and he's crucial. He's the free taker as well, remember. So, yeah, Cathal Dowling was brilliant. Gary Keegan, Cathal Dowling 3 goals the last day, and they effectively had down buried early and got down in Ballycran, would have strongly fancied their chances. Carlow know that they need, this is a huge game now. If Carlow could win this, and even if Down lose, we'll say, to Dublin, which you probably expect on all current form, Down will still have a fair go at Antrim in the last match. Davies probably didn't go maybe all baldy to beat Dublin, so they're probably getting ready for that match in Newry. But if Carlow could win this game. No matter what had happened in the last game, you're going to go to scoring difference. And there's only a point between Antrim and Carlow on scoring. Kildare are fairly healthy on scoring. So if it goes to three-way playoff on 4 points, Kildare, I think, are safe unless they take an awful mauling, which I don't see with the way they're hurling. So they've been the story for me. It's brilliant. And a lot of people had them written off. They'd go back down out of this division, back to the third tier, and they'd also come straight back down in Leinster. I think lots of counties around Leinster are looking at them now and saying, going to Newbridge is not going to be easy in the Leinster Championship. And the 3 Bournes alone are 3 great bits of stuff. And I'd say they played nearly any level. And it's great. I think it's just great for hurling. It's an area, I think, that all hurling people were hoping to grow the game and get more powers into hurling. I would say Kildare really have a lot going for them, and that huge population there, and fine set up now, a new stadium in Newbridge, and lots of good hurling there. Beginning with Naas, but the other clubs, really go through the team. It's not all Naas dominated. So they'd be favourites, I'd say, to beat Carlow, but Carlow under Pat Bennett fighting for their lives and trying to get on to that 4 points.
Should be an interesting one. So that's the action in 1B this weekend. And as I said, the live game on RTÉ television this weekend is Galway, Kilkenny and Salthill on Saturday night. But for now, Marty and Anthony, thanks very much. Just a reminder to you listening that you can get in touch with the podcast on email. We're available at sportpodcasts@rte.ie, and you can like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts as well. But we'll talk to you again on Monday.
Possession crucial from this. How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the